Hello everybody, it is N, and today I'm going to be doing another book review, a little bit late for Spooktober, but you know, for the record, I'm doing this on October 18th, so like, I'm still technically spooky, so, sorry. I'm going to be reviewing The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. This is one of the most classical horror books of all time, and it's really cool. If you don't know who Cthulhu is, he's probably the most famous horror creature of all time aside from Pennywise. He's like the dude from Pirates of the Caribbean, except really scary. This book was written in around 1920s and way back in the day before even the Second World War, so this is like prehistoric writing. This stuff is insane. The entire book is really short and sums up at about 34 pages. It took me only a night to read, maybe about an hour or so, because the writing is dense here. The pages are like really, they're short pages, but the story itself is kind of dense. Yeah, a lot of writing on each page. Besides this being one of the shortest books I've read all year, this was a really solid book. I can't complain too much about this. It's a very short book. You can't expect an epic out of it, but it was a solid book with a good story and good thrills. The story within this book is basically this guy, he goes out and he finds his uncle's treasure chest thing, and inside is a record of all of this different documents pointing out connections between weird things in the world, and then all of these things come together and they're kind of centered around this thing called Cthulhu, which is a ancient beast octopus dude, and the nephew has no idea what it's about, but the uncle died a couple months ago, so he's dead and he has nobody to ask about it, and so he's just going through the documents and he's seeing all of the weird things that he found. One of the things was that some people were having dreams at a certain part of the year, and a lot of these dreams were similar compared to other people, and these were very scary dreams with Cthulhu in them, and it was an ancient giant world with the weird shapes and a very mysterious aura overall, so it's pretty scary. And some other things was that there were some idols collected from around the world that seemed to be almost identical in terms of what they portrayed, and all of these things were of an octopus guy thing. I don't remember any actual really good picture of Cthulhu, but if I can find one, I'll put it up right here. This guy is what the book is about. Really spooky. So the narrator goes out and tries to further the research and understanding on Cthulhu, and so he travels the world looking for all this kind of evidence of what's going on, and at the beginning he starts in complete disbelief of what's going on, but as the narrative progresses he learns more and more that this thing might actually be real, and the ending, boy, the ending was pretty cool. So I'm not going to spoil too much as to what happens at the end, but you guys know basically what goes on in the book. I've told you so far, and it's a very short book, so if I was to go any further about it, then it would be spoilers. So that's what the book is about, and let me tell you about what I thought of it. A pretty good book. Not up to normal standards. It does not have a great plot in it, and I'm not a huge fan of the prose, although it was pretty good at times. Sometimes it was just far too confusing for me to understand, but the overall story itself was fairly interesting. It went through with a very strong emphasis on horror, of the mystery of Cthulhu, and I really appreciated that, because a lot of the horror books that I've read do not exactly focus on mystery. They kind of focus on scare, like you get scared, that's it. I was really hoping for some really cool horror books to kind of get me started on thinking about horror stories for a project that I'm going to be telling you about eventually. Not yet, maybe in a month or two, so look out for that. But at the moment I was really looking for some scary books. I was thinking maybe I'll read Ray Bradbury's the Something Wicked This Way Comes, so let me know in the comments if you want to see that. The structure of the story itself was fairly interesting. I liked the beginning, I liked the middle. The middle was probably my favorite part. The ending, although it was pretty cool, I think it was not the greatest ending that I've seen. It was very odd. It didn't really have a strong narrative structure, and it wasn't exactly a giant, oh no, this is happening. It was like, oh, this guy told me this is happening. And so it's kind of secondhand, and it doesn't really feel as horrifying as you would expect it to in the Cthulhu book. Like, this is one of the most iconic horror stories of all time. Cthulhu is insane, but at the end of the book, the ending was not as perfect, it's not as horrifying as I would expect it to be. The ending was cool, but just not horrifying for me. And that's kind of what I want out of a horror book, you know? I really want to get scared. I really want to feel fear in my heart, but unfortunately this didn't do it for me. It got a lot further than a lot of books, and if you guys know me, you know I don't get scared. So, you know, even if I get a little bit scared, which I did, and the middle of this was kind of spooky, I wouldn't exactly call it a really scary book. I'm guessing some people would call it scary. I'm not a big guy for getting scared in terms of books. I've gotten only scared in Revival of Stephen King, somewhere up there, and that's the only book I've ever been scared of. But this one, as much as it's not scary, I think it's a very solid story in the beginning and middle, and the ending was pretty cool. The characters were completely not good at all. You go through this book, it's only 30 pages, so there's not much you can do with the characters. They were as good as they needed to be, but there was no obvious very exceptional characters such as you would see in a Stephen King book, even in a short story. This guy, we don't know what his name is even, and so we barely know what he's about. We know a little bit about the professor, we know a little bit about the test subject, of who they're talking to and what they're learning, but we don't know enough about them to see them as a real person or a character. We have a few times where they feel really realistic, but at that point, they're still not a huge, important character to me. I think the biggest part about this book that everybody loves is that it's so original. I don't think at this point there was ever a book that explained this dark, ancient beast, the rising out of the earth and destroying it and being this ancient, legendary, godlike being that is so ready to destroy the world. And it's really, really interesting, because even now I don't see that too often. Only the best stories I've heard are like that, of an ancient evil being of great power coming out to destroy the world. One of them would be It, of course. But even there, that would obviously be inspired by this. So this is probably the biggest thing about the story. Its originality, which everybody loves about it, was not a thing when this came out. And so of course I have to praise it for its time. It was a very, very strong, very steady and scary book for its time, very innovative and very original. But as of right now, I think we've changed, we've seen a lot of these kind of books. And so, as much as it's not as incredible, as profound as it might have been at one point, it's still a very strong book in terms of its historical value. And so I'm gonna have to rate it a 4 out of 5, because it's a good story, it has a good plot, good middle, no characters. You can't expect any good characters out of a tiny book like that. And the ending, it was not as, I would have loved it if there was a much cooler ending where something actually happened, rather than, I can't tell you what, but if you read the story, you'll know. The last star that I left out was more or less just for the ending and for the overall ending area of the story, not fully wrapping things up as much as I would have loved it to be. I think there was a little bit more to be explored there. It might have been better if it's like this, but to me, I just feel like there was a bunch of stuff that went into the story that we didn't explain. For example, there is the city of Relaya. But you know, we didn't get to see anything about that city, and that's really unfortunate for me, because it sounded so scary. And that might be part of the horror, the aspect of we don't know what that is, and this exists, but we don't know anything about it. That might be part of it, but I personally would have loved to have explored that, even if it's just a little bit. We didn't even touch on that, actually, so that's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, so 4 out of 5 seems pretty good for me. I enjoyed it. Would recommend to anybody who wants to seek a really short horror book that's, you know, honestly pretty good. Not the scariest book I've ever read, but pretty good, not bad at all. And that's gonna be all for my October 18th review, okay? This is October 18th. I'm sorry I missed Spooktober. I really wanted to do this but I pre-recorded so many videos that I can't get it out in time properly, because I have like an upload schedule. I upload every single Sunday, so if you want to see another video from me next week, make sure to subscribe down below or hit that like button to see more spooky books. Let me know down below if you want me to do Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes, because I'm really excited to do that. I'm currently working my way through Dark Tower Book 5, The Wolves of the Calla, and it's getting pretty good, but of course I'm really slow going through Dark Tower. It's not my favorite series of all time, so I'm happy to break up that books with other books, so let me know anything I should read down below. I'm sorry for getting the spooky book out so late, but you know, what can you do? I got an upload schedule. First world problems. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!